Okay, so my name is Vivian Tomacek and I am from Hungary, Budapest, and I am a PhD student at Eötvös Loránd University in the Institute of Psychology. Well, in the beginning it was hard because I joined our lab when I was only a BA student in psychology, so it was really hard at that time because later on I learned a lot at the lab and also at the university, but it was challenging for me to start it early in my studies, and I was also working in my previous profession, which was a high school teacher, so there were a lot of things going on. So my first project is about nightmare disorder, and I started as a BA student, and I was looking for some physiological correlates of this disorder, and we started using heart rate variability, which is it's becoming a quite widespread, and it's a transdiagnostic biomarker, but it hasn't really been used as an assessment tool in this particular disorder. We try to measure autonomic activity with heart rate variability.
Hi, my name is Simon Taiton. I am a researcher at the KU Leuven in Belgium and in the lab of Geneviève Alboy. I've been there almost 3 years now, so I have about a year and 3 months left of my PhD. I'm working on 2 studies for my PhD. The first one was originally going to look at age-related differences in functional connectivity in relation to motor learning between young and old people. But with COVID, we had to remove the older population since that's kind of a risk. So I'm currently just observing the differences in functional connectivity between a control night and an experimental night of sleep. So after learning a motor task. The study that I'm currently investigating is using targeted memory reactivation. So I'm playing auditory cues during sleep. And this is a pretty well established technique. It's still fairly new, but I am observing the changes to functional connectivity that occur, which, as far as I know, has not been directly observed. I've learned a lot about the engineering side of the analysis and such. Lots of hands-on work with the data collection period. I was collecting overnight data, so I spent a lot of time in the lab, not a lot of time sleeping, and now I am still learning about the targeted memory reactivation, but I have a lot of colleagues who can help me with that.
So I'm Victoria Georgiavouli, I'm from Thessaloniki, Greece, and I work for a service of the Greek Ministry of Education, which is for the assessment of children and in terms of their learning needs. So I'm an applied psychologist, and all the research that I do it in my free time, essentially. It has been a very interesting experience because it's like an interactive process. I find out that the things that I learn, especially about sleep, are immediately applicable into my day job because I work with children. And because most of the research projects I've done so far were about children as well, so that helps me put things into practice. And once I see them being applied, then that reinforces my interest into research. So I think that helps me, that motivates me, and it makes it easy for me to work on research projects in my free time. And it all started when I did a master's degree in neuroscience of education. It started about 4 years ago, roughly. And then with that incentive, I also did some neuropsychology modules, which did not exist when I was younger. And so I created like a scientific network around me in addition to my day job, with like neuropsychologists, pediatric neurologists. So I get a lot of information from them, a lot of support, ideas about projects. And then through my master's, while I was preparing for my master's, eventually ended up writing a paper, and also got a foreign collaboration with that. That's Professor Karen Spruit. She's based in France, and she's a sleep expert. and a neuropsychologist. And I'm planning to continue doing some research projects with her in the future.
My name is Mariana Pereira, and I am actually, well, I think I am in my third year of my PhD program, and I am at the Thunders Institute, more precisely at the Sleep and Memory Lab, doing sleep research, of course. So far, it's been amazing, I would say. Of course, it has its ups and downs. And especially like since I spent most of my PhD time during a global pandemic, so I would say I had to learn quite fast how to deal with setbacks, which I think it's something that you have to learn anyways. But I think it has been more positives than negatives, so I'm quite happy. First of all, sleep, it's so interesting and it's so diverse because it can actually be connected to a lot of other things, so brain clearancing, endocrinology, and so on and so forth. The list goes on. But during my PhD, what I actually want to look at is how large-scale brain networks are engaging during non-REM dreaming. And we also want to look at the functional and structural differences between certain dream traits. For instance, dream recall frequency or lucid dreaming frequency and nightmares frequency. And we are just at the piloting phase of a large data collection in which we aim to record REM sleep using fMRI and EEG simultaneously. And we also plan to use certain lucid dreaming induction techniques to sort of like be able to record lucid dream inside the MRI scanner. So we will be looking at, again, large-scale brain networks and trying to differentiate the difference between REM sleep, lucid REM sleep versus non-lucid REM sleep, but also having this neurobiology characterization of REM sleep, which still a lot to unveil, let's say.
I'm Pierre Champetier. I'm a PhD student in Caen, in France, and I'm affiliated to the laboratory in Nîmes for neuropsychology and imaging of the human memory, and I'm supervised by Géraldine Roche, and I also work with Gaël Chetla. Indeed, it's a very challenging experience, but also very interesting because so we have to, with our supervisor, identify in the literature where are the gaps and try to see how we can fill them. So in fact, I'm interested in many aspects of sleep. I'm interested in the link between sleep and memory, also the impact of aging on sleep quality. In my PhD, I also want to evaluate if the practice of meditation could limit the effect of aging on sleep quality. And also I'm very curious about dreams, even if I don't, even if it's not part of my PhD.
Hi, I'm Louisa Gosset. I work at the Center for Brain and Cognitive Development at the University of London. I'm a recent postdoc, and I've actually found the experience to be really rewarding because every person that I've met is incredibly supportive. I designed a kind of a headgear to measure NIRS, which is like a method to investigate hemodynamic brain activity, and EEG at the same time in babies. So that's kind of one thing that I'm working on, and the other thing that I'm working on is kind of the role of sleep in early kind of markers of developmental disorders such as ADHD or autism. Yeah. I mean, it's actually really hard to get babies to sleep when you want them to sleep, as I'm sure every parent knows. We invite them to come to the lab and we try and put them to sleep with like all the cables and things on their head. And then about half of them actually fall asleep. So I think the data collection is definitely the most challenging thing.
Well, actually, I was always looking for more, and besides going to university and working, I went to a lot of lectures in my free time. And once I saw a lecture about sleep for medical students, and I visited that one, and it was actually held by my future supervisor, Peter Simor in Hungary, and I really loved his talk, and I googled the lab and I saw that they are looking for interns, so I sent him my CV, and that's how I got into the lab.
I knew I was interested in neuroscience fairly early on in my career, so in my bachelor's I focused on neuroscience and what I could incorporate of sleep, and in my master's I did a master's in neuroimaging, so to kind of broaden my applicability for PhD position. So I've always been curious about how things work, and my grandmother is actually a neuroscientist as well. She's kind of a pioneering neuroscientist in development. So she was an inspiration to me in a lot of ways, and I've always found that sleep has held so many mysteries and questions to unlock, so it's been very exciting in that way.
Initially, I was working on epilepsy, and after having read widely on epilepsy, I noticed that there were some issues in relation to sleep, like there was a dynamic relationship with epilepsy in children and how sleep impacts on epilepsy and sleep. So that's how I initially got into sleep, only in relation to epilepsy. But then once I had this new supervisor who is expert in the field, then I started getting interested in sleep as a topic on its own. And I was checking what is happening with ESRS, like what type of events, books coming out, and things like that.
To answer that question, I actually would have to come back to my bachelor's degree. So I was doing a exchange program in the US, and I was taking this neuroimaging course taught by a neurologist. And it was so amazing because we had to pick a subject, trying to relate this subject with Parkinson's disease. And somehow I felt so drawn and fascinated about vivid dreams, and especially REM sleep behavior disorder. And the idea of maybe looking at it and trying to find possible biomarkers, it was like amazing to me. So that was actually my first experience with sleep research, and I think I never left. So the field. So it's been it's been quite a few years so far, but it's just like you keep learning and a lot of questions left to be answered, and it's just very interesting.
So I was interested in neuroscience and brain sciences when I was like 18 years old, and I read a book from Isabelle Arnulf. So she's the head of the sleep disorder unit in the hospital Salpêtrière in Paris, and this book was really interesting, and there were I learned many things about sleep because as many people, what I had in mind is that sleep is a kind of just a shutdown for the brain, and this is totally wrong, and yes, that's why I wanted to study it and know more about this state that we spend like a third of our whole life in that state, and we don't know so much things.
So I come from developmental science, so baby research, and I always thought it was really interesting how much time babies actually spend asleep, right? They spend like up to 18 hours and the first couple of like months of their life asleep. And so to me as a developmental researcher, that's really fascinating to kind of understand why that is and whether it actually is related to their development or not. So that's how I became interested in sleep research.